What's the most awful thing you've overheard while fake sleeping? I was a camp counselor. Two girls very much like to make hot or not lists. One of them suggested a male counselor was hot, and the other said he was saying mean things about me behind my back, which made him not hot. Hurt to hear that from my campers, but glad they supported me. My mom trying to calm my dad down out of a suicidal fit. My brother and I had been really bad that day, and when he grounded us, we both told him that we hated him and wanted him to go away. He didn't do anything wrong. My brother and I were just a couple of immature little cunts. I'm pretty sure blackout drunk at this point, which I had never seen and still haven't saw since then, walked into our room that night and I pretended to fall asleep. Then he just started these deep, haunting sobs that I'll probably never forget. He stumbled outside and we could hear him begging my mom to let him die and sobbing. All I've ever wanted in my entire life was to be a better dad than mine. I was only 11 or so, but it freaking destroyed my heart. I think that's the time I learned that emotional pain can actually physically hurt. I was hunched over in my bed bawling my eyes out and on the verge of throwing up. I also felt like an asshole for crying over what we said. My brother was thankfully able to sleep through it all. I think about that once every 2 weeks or so, and I always message him to tell him I love him when I do. I hoped he forgot about it, but being a dad myself now, I don't think it's something you totally forget. It might not hurt like it did in the moment, but I don't think you forget. Like most heartbreaking things I guess. My sister got drunk, and I heard a loud thud, and she blacked out. Two of her friends and my mom and dad were shouting at each other, and they were saying to shut up cause they didn't want to wake me up, and they were all crying thinking she was dead, and I couldn't tell my sister I was happy she didn't die. Now I appreciate seeing her every week. When I was a wee tot, I pretended to be asleep in the family room, so I wouldn't have to actually go to bed, and once my parents were distracted, I could keep watching TV. I then got to hear my dad proposition my mom for couch sex. It's been many years, so I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was something along the lines of hop on pop. Sleeping over at a friend's house when I was 14, all of us on the floor in living room. Couldn't sleep. Two of my friends, guy and girl, directly next to me start doing freaky things to each other. I was extremely shy and a couple of years younger than them, so I stayed quiet and hoped they'd stop. Had to listen to them for an hour while she made weird ass moaning squeaky noises and he was singing in a weird slightly whispery singy voice Matchbox 20 songs to her while he did whatever he was doing. That was last time I slept over at a friend's house. I wasn't pretending to be asleep per se, but I was well on my way. I was under anesthesia and was fading in and out. I remember closing my eyes to help move things along. I was in a lot of pain because my appendix ruptured. This happened years ago, so I can't remember all of the details, unfortunately. I remember being moved over to an operating table and they told me to take my shirt off, I think. I heard someone go, "What do you think would happen if I poked her belly button right now?" I was an outie prior to having an appendectomy. They went through my belly button, so that is no longer the case. Anyway, someone, very quickly, responded, "Dude, that is not funny. Remember what happened the last time?" It's possible I was starting to dream, but I remember it making me feel a mix of amusement and anxiety. When I was around 8 years old I was supposed to be asleep, but I snuck downstairs to get milk or something. I heard talking going on downstairs, so I stood still and listened. My mom was talking to my brother about how much of a problem I was, and how she hated me. She always liked my brother more. I just silently crept back upstairs, and cried myself to sleep. Good times. I wasn't pretending to be asleep so much as they assumed I was asleep. My in-laws thought I was still napping after dropping my kid off at school, and they started to shit talk me. They said I was a terrible mom. I didn't care about my kids at all, and they better buy a cake, because I would rather sleep all day than make him a cake. It was his birthday and my god, it was only 10 AM. It doesn't take that long to make and frost a cake for him. Anyways, I cried in my room for 2 hours before they left to buy groceries, i.e. drink themselves into a stupor, before I got up and made the cake and birthday dinner my child asked for. I didn't tell my husband what they said until a week later because I didn't want to ruin his or my child's day. I was at my BF's apartment staying over. His roommate also happened to have some friends who were dating there as well. I was in my BF's room and they were sleeping in the living room. They were definitely freaking. Weirdest thing of it all were these literal banging sounds, like someone was hitting the freaking wall the whole time. I had to piss like a mother freaker, but getting to the bathroom involved walking by the living room and I did not wanna risk it. When we woke up the next morning, someone had ripped a chunk out of one of the curtains and the TV remote was snapped in half. To this day I don't wanna know what was going on in there. Roommate's boyfriend and his friend came into my room when they thought I was asleep. It was warm, and I was sleeping naked with minimal blanket coverage. I froze and pretended to sleep. They proceeded to talk about my body and how it was anyone's type. Also how easily it was to drug ladies these days. Oh, and also the friend talked about how easy it would be to steal/sell my boyfriend's boat motor that he had stored in the room. Yeah, so they were kicked out, and friend became an ex-friend because she was pissed I'd let my boyfriend kick them out. Found out my dad's best friend died. They have been friends since they were literally 5 years old, went to the same schools, stayed best friends for 50 years. When he became an alcoholic and cut off contact with everybody, my dad still reached out to him multiple times, even though he obviously wasn't ready. He eventually got off the drink and they became really close again and were calling each other every day. I woke up to the phone ringing and my dad looking at it and immediately saying to my mom, "Oh god, I think he's dead." He knew that she only called when something bad was up and he had been hospitalized multiple times because of his drinking. I remember saying on a post years ago that I dread to think of the day that his best friend died because I knew it was coming soon because of his past. My dad is old and is the type of guy who just wants a chat, and I know a lot of people he talks to don't want to do that. Anyway, I heard it all unfold and pretended to sleep because I just did not know what to say. I couldn't imagine losing a best friend for that long. I sat in my bed for hours thinking about it, but just laying still. I didn't fully process it until I went to work and I spent nearly 2 hours crying in the toilets. That was the only time I cried in my adult life. When I was 12, I was staying with my aunt and cousins for a few weeks during summer. My male cousin was 4 years older than me. One night I was laying down in the loft, my sleeping quarters for the trip, and my cousin came home late with a friend. They came up to the loft, where they would normally hang out, and began talking. The friend noticed that I was asleep, asked my cousin if he could touch me. There was a whole back and forth about it, but in the end my cousin agreed to let him. His friend then proceeded to touch me. I was terrified and pretended to stay asleep. After a moment I moved a bit and rolled over, much like you would in your sleep. That was enough to get him to stop. I freaking hate that cousin to this day. When I was a kid, I was pretending to sleep in the car. I was in the back seat next to my older sister. I was probably 6 or 7, so she would have been around 13. She let out a raunchy, all windows down, gag the rest of the car sort of fart. It was loud, but we were both in the back. She immediately blames it on me farting in my sleep. The whole car laughs and rolls down their windows, and I stayed asleep. No one to this day knows that it was her, and she still thinks she got away with it. I got you sees. 4 years ago, after a night out in New York City with a friend, we decided to crash at her parents' Manhattan apartment. They lived full time outside of the city, instead of trekking back to our respective places. Her and her siblings basically used the apartment as a crash pad for whenever they were in that part of the city, and we were aware that one of her older brothers might show up there to sleep that night. When we got home he wasn't there, and I opted to sleep on this really cool enormous window seat in the living room instead of sharing a bed with my friend. I must have drifted off for a while, but I woke up to him coming into the apartment and talking on the phone. I decided to pretend to be asleep, since I had only met him once and didn't want to make sleepy small talk. I then heard him say to the other person on the phone, "Oh, I forgot. Friend has this girl over. Yeah, she's cute. I'm pretty sure she's asleep. Yeah, definitely asleep. I could just go over there and get on top of her for sure. I mean, yeah, it's been a long time." He continued to vocally consider assaulting me and took a step or two closer to the window while I laid there frozen until he finally said something along the lines of "Nah, I probably shouldn't. Anyway, friend is here," and walked away. I forced myself to stay awake for as long as I could, slept for maybe an hour or two, and left as soon as I could in the morning. I told my friend what her brother had said, and her response was essentially, "Well, he's lonely." My father used to work really late nights, coming home at anywhere between midnight, 2 AM. I remember falling asleep on the couch and smelling my mom making some fresh tortillas for his dinner. I closed my eyes because I heard the door opened and wondered if I would be carried. Instead I heard him get washed up, and I heard him ask my mom had I ate yet. She told him that I was waiting on him, but not to wake me because it was a school night. I remember feeling sad because I thought I would be left alone and starving, but then my dad woke me up with a tortilla in his hand and tore off a piece of it, fed it to me, and told me to come eat with him. I guess this doesn't count as hearing something bad, but for some reason I thought of that memory. My father passed away 2 years ago from colon cancer at the age of 52, but what I would give to be 8 again just waiting for him to come home. Not exactly bad thing, but we had a sleepover, and one of my best friends liked a girl from the group of friends we had gathered there. Apparently she liked him back, so it was arranged that I would sleep on the couch in the living room. They were in front of me sitting together while hugged in front of the fireplace. I pretended that I was full asleep so my friend could make a move. I heard their entire 2 hours convo before they started making out. I literally couldn't sleep as they were talking so much. NGL, it was extremely cringy, but I powered through. They were checking at me from here and there to see if I was awake, which for me was the most awkward part. They in a relationship now, and they doing pretty well together. We had been up all night drinking, and I was almost asleep. I.F. was on a recliner. They were on the couch right next to me. My best friend trying to force a blowjob onto our other friend. He kept telling her no, because I was in the room. He didn't want to disrespect me like that. Her saying she didn't care, and that maybe it would wake me up, so I could join. Then laughing and saying she was kidding, when she didn't get the response she wanted. She wasn't kidding. Him saying no repeatedly, and then aggressive choking noises, which went on for what felt like forever. Him telling her how uncomfortable he was, and asking if they could at least do this in the bathroom. Them leaving and me finally thinking I could get some sleep. Them coming back out of the bathroom 2 minutes later with her chewing him out for not coming. Her begging him to keep trying and him telling her it's just not going to happen. Her crying and telling him how horrible he is. Then it was quiet enough that I fell asleep, but he shook me awake sometime later asking if I would please cuddle him. He had clearly been crying. I felt bad, so I did. I'm no longer friends with her because she kept putting me in weird situations that were very uncomfortable, which included using me as a cover to cheat on her now ex-husband, asking me to hang out, and when I would show up she would clearly be on a cheating date, repeatedly trying to kiss me and then being like, "Oops, sorry, I'm so used to kissing my SOs goodbye, I didn't mean that." The list of things goes on. I'm still cool with him though. I'd been laying in bed awake for a while putting off getting up when I overheard my roommate interrogating his girlfriend about the affair we were allegedly having. He sounded pretty unhinged, but she remained remarkably calm while he pressed her to explicitly deny engaging in a list of specific sex acts with me. It was some weird and unsettling crap. There was nothing going on, and I had no idea what would make him think anything was. We'd gotten along just fine up until then, and I was worried that my living situation was about to become a lot more tense. His girlfriend was gone by the time I got up, and life continued like nothing happened. Eventually I learned that my wonderful roommate whom I'd known for years was really an abusive asshole who would grill his girlfriend about made up accusations for reasons I don't fully comprehend. Apparently this is a pretty common behavior for abusers, and it wouldn't be the last time I encountered it. My family had been visiting in town, so I got to camp out in the living room, which was super exciting to me at 8 or 9 years old. I've always been a heavy sleeper who liked to sleep in, so I was pretending to be asleep when all the adults were sitting around talking and watching the morning news. I heard on the news that Steve Irwin, my hero, had died. Like, I was obsessed with him, and he was a father figure to me growing up. I watched the shows religiously, and I planned on moving to Australia when I was all grown up to work at the zoo with him and Bindi. I'd spend countless hours playing on my grandma's accounting calculator to figure out how much it'd cost to go on vacation to Australia to meet him and see all the zoo animals. I didn't fully process what I heard on the news until later that day. My grandma was in the kitchen while cooking. She told me that Steve Irwin had passed away. I snapped at her, "I know that," burst into tears and asked why, then went outside and cried. It's one of my strongest childhood memories. Like and subscribe for more Reddit videos.